Hi, welcome to rajxilinive and welcome to the video series of understanding the job description while applying for different job profiles. In this today video, we are going to discuss about the job title, which is something like a Python developer or else a Python architect. As we all know, understanding about Python, implementing Python programming is becoming essentially important in application development in the field of IT nowadays. This is nothing to do with technology. This is nothing to do with domain. So requirement over knowledge in reference to the Python programming in Python development is required nowadays. And there were opportunities even we can see in the market as well. But whoever is applying for these job profiles, something relating to developer or maybe in a senior level position, senior developers, or more than that, Python architects, because Python architects were experienced and expertise in developing and understanding the architectures, all that. But whereas developers, not relating to that stuff. But for that, there are some skill sets which normally required for anyone, whoever is applying for job opportunities. And please do remember, this is based on the research I have made so far. Whatever the common skill sets required for any Python people, whoever is learning or whoever is having experience in Python development, whoever is applying for jobs, these are the common skill sets which I was mentioned here. Few require to add, depends on the kind of job profile it was, depends on the experience and all, and few will be deducted in the existing skill set which was mentioned by me. So I don't say that every job profile requires these competencies or these skill sets, all that. Some may be required to you add as additional. Some may be required lesser, right? So that may happen. But on an average note, if anybody who wants to apply for Python job opportunities, these are the two different skill sets which I am going to explain in today's video. The first is about underlying competencies. The second is technical and programming skills which is required. Of course, apart from that, even I am explaining how and what architect level experience and as well as knowledge one should have if someone is applying for Python architect level as well. Let's get into the first one, which is called underlying competencies. As any job profile requires, these are which is common. Like either it could be decision-making skills or it could be problem-solving skills, team management skills, verbal and written communication. So these are the common underlying competency skill set any employee requires nowadays. This is nothing to do with any technology. This is nothing to do with any domain. Either we are applying for job opportunities in the field of IT or non-IT. Underlying competencies are essentially important for anyone. So these underlying competencies were one common to everyone because situation to situation, experience to experience, what you will be having, you may require to manage your team members over a period of time. At the same time, you will be in the decision making front sometimes based on your seniority and experience. So that decision making skills, problem solving skills, these sort of underlying competencies required for any person who is applying for job opportunities. So these underlying competencies were common. If you remember and if you can go through my previous videos, these underlying competencies were common, right? So please don't confuse. So because underlying competencies are one same in most of like decision making, problem solving skills, team management skills, verbal and written communication skill sets. These are all the generalized underlying competencies any profile requires. Some profiles that importance will be in a higher level. Some profiles the importance will be in low, in less compared to that. That's only the difference. Now, when we talk about technical and programming skill sets, this is what generally the technical and programming skill sets one must be having. The first thing is that whatever the Python based frameworks, different frameworks like Flask or Fast API or GraphQL, Django, Flask or Pyramid. So different Python frameworks are available. Apart from the programming knowledge, whatever person is having, because frameworks are the one which create an environment where we don't require to develop an application from the beginning. Because some people, I don't generalize this point, but some people will have a doubt over what exactly framework is all about. Framework nothing but you don't require to build an application from the scratch, all the applications. So you require a framework, you will be developing a framework using different framework processes. So using that framework from whatever the product you are developing or a project you are developing, from there onwards, this will give you a high level understanding over the things which has to be implemented in the field of development in reference to that application, whichever the programming it was. So framework gives a clear understanding over the overall implementation front, what is to be taken into the next level. This is what generally frameworks were all about. So of course, there were other frameworks like TOGAF, Jackman, you might have heard about this. These are different frameworks even in the field of IT. Like this Python-based frameworks we have like Flask, Fast API, GraphQL, Django, Flask or Pyramid, all that. Of course, I don't say that all the frameworks are required. Being a Python developer or an architect level positions and all, you may be required one or two itself is sufficient, because all the frameworks won't be used by one project or in our organization. Because nowadays you see there are a lot of cloud applications were coming on. Some people may use open source. That too there depends on their decision. There were a lot of open source applications were available now online. Some at the same time cloud applications were available nowadays. So different organizations depends on the decision, depends on the budget, what they have, whatever the frameworks are they going to use will vary. It will not be the same for all the time. So Python based frameworks are these one or two Python based frameworks if you learn if you know, so that it has more advantage. Next thing is that nowadays, not only for Python, even for any of the profiles, even to an extent possible, even for an analyst roles, even if you see, knowledge over API development is becoming mandatory. API is nothing but application programming interface. Means there is an interface of API which has to be created by a development team where you want to access some information from other website. Let's say, for example, you are applying. You want to book a flight ticket, right? Whenever you want to book a flight ticket, what is that you require? You go to any travel portal website where you will be giving all your relevant information, like from where you need to travel, which location, what date, all that. So based on that, relevant information will be seen on the screen. So as these people are third-party applications like travel portals, all that, how come they have accessed that information? Because there is an API which was developed in back of it by the development team, so that the information can be accessed in this travel websites, all that, right? So this is how usually. So API development required for any technical applications nowadays, so that even in reference to the Python development role or for a architect role, knowledge over developing APIs, testing, and as well as deployment of APIs will give an additional advantage, because I don't say that 100% people will have a strong command over APIs. But to an extent possible, if you have a knowledge over APIs, will provide you a better position on the race. on the job race. Next is programming. Programming knowledge over the programming is also essentially required, as you know, like something like Python or PySpark or Scala, right? So different programming knowledge is required anyway. This is which is quite common. At the same time, whatever the big data streaming services, something like Kinesis or Kafka, is also becoming and essentially important nowadays for any person who is applying for job opportunities in the field of Python. That too, this is something relating to the projects, something which are relating to big data related stuff. Any big data related opportunities, job opportunities will come. They may be expecting you to have some kind of services required in context to the Kinesis, Kafka, etc. All that. At the same time, knowledge over SQL, of course, for any job profiles, then is important. At the same time, NoSQL data stores, something like HBase, DynamoDB, PostgreSQL, AWS DynamoDB, maybe if you're going for cloud environment. So these data stores knowledge, any one I can say, right? So please don't take it to confirmation that everything is required. So you may be required one, at least you have an advantage. That's what I can say, because practically won't be possible by the people having experience in all the programming skill sets which was mentioned here. I don't mean it, right? So because anyone itself is sufficient so that it have more confidence over while you're applying for job opportunities or when you're going for interviews, all that stuff. Followed by this, you need to have a knowledge over Python libraries like pandas or numpys, etc. So Python libraries, all that, right? So having knowledge over Python libraries also required, but most of the people ignore these libraries because reading API documentation, understanding the libraries of either it could be Python, it could be of any of the programming. So most of the people ignore it for some reason. I don't know, but still I was really uh, because I don't know the reason, but most of the people don't think about the libraries functionality, all that. But I would suggest people should have a knowledge over Python libraries or libraries, whichever is relating to programming I'm talking about. That knowledge will excel you in the next level, right? This is where generally you need to understand. At the same time, not only knowledge over SQL, you need to understand and have a knowledge over developing some complex SQL queries, like queries involving in joins and queries and all that stuff. So knowledge over SQL queries and all everything, complex SQL queries are also required usually because this is subject to the experience what that person has, right? So it will not be the same for all the one, right? So because developing some complex queries relating to the involvements in joins and subqueries and all everything may have the differences, right? So somebody will have a knowledge over SQL, somebody or may not have. But I don't say compulsory. At the same time, I don't say that you have to ignore it. If you can excel your knowledge over SQL queries and all everything, which will give you an additional edge. Because when you are in the race of the interview, so for example, assume that I am an individual. I may have less experience when comparing to some others, or I may have a less educational experience, background experience, maybe with others. If I'm excelling in other technical skills, I'll be in the race effectively comparing to others because I need to show myself special among the people. Then only people will recognize an interviewer or an employer. So on that context, you need to understand because somebody will have technical experience will be good, but they may not have that much effective qualification experience. They may not have. Some people vice versa. Some people will have good technical and educational experience, educational qualification. Somebody may not have technically knowledgeable experience. So that varies, right? So wherever, if you found that we are backing the race, right? If you feel that these sort of new technical skill set, if you are upgrading yourself and you are putting in your CV, that will give an edge to you to perform yourself better. At the same time, recognition to you to attend for an interviews will be much better, right? This is what generally, uh, as far as my experience being a consultant trainer and as well as a coach, as I usually take, no, I'll be working as a consultant, so that based on my experience, I'm sharing all these views to you. I hope these are all will be useful to you. At the same time, knowledge over JavaScripting and HTML. This is also essentially required, right? So scripting about HTML, markup languages, all that. At the same time, this is the common point like coding, design, deployment, debugging, and all that. So this is also something common for everyone, right? So this knowledge is also required for you, right? So coding, design, deployment, and development, all that. At the same time, performance tuning even, right? So because performance tuning, automation of applications also is required, because performance tuning of the applications will give you an additional advantage to you. Followed by that, understanding over the user orientation elements into different applications, integration, because integration knowledge will also be helpful to you when you are applying for job opportunities. This is also helpful to you. At the same time, if your job opportunity is something relating to big data, Hadoop, and all that stuff, knowledge over data processing frameworks like Spark, Hive, Nifi, Flink, Spark Streaming, etc., will give you an additional edge. Please to remember again, I'm repeating you the same. Whatever the skill set I'm mentioning here, please don't consider that all the frameworks or all the skill sets are necessary needed, because some organization to organization, whatever the frameworks they use, all these things will, whatever the data relate databases they use may vary, right? So you at least one, if you have at least in the worst cases, I'm saying at least one, if you have, it has a more knowledge. That's what I'm trying to say, right? So because it doesn't mean that whatever I was mentioning here should be there in your CV, because most of the people, based on my uh, interview related coaching experience, even because as being a professional trainer, coach, and as well as a consultant, I do provide a career this advisory to the people, career transition advisories, all that. Whatever I see in their CVs is this, right? So usually they put whatever is there in the industry, because because they mention everything relating to that particular technology. Either it could be Python or it could be of any other job profile. They put everything in their CV, but no matter whether they had experience or whether they had exposure, they don't see all that, because they put all these in the CV and they apply for opportunities. There are cases I have seen. Why I'm explaining this point is that I have seen some people, some of my people who ever approached me for consulting. There are chances that people got uh, unsucceeded. I don't say failed, because failed is not the right word to use. There is nothing as failure. You have to try a lot. Got unsucceeded in the interviews because of this. Whatever they were mentioned on the CV and what they know was completely contrast. These people know 10%. Sorry to say this. I'm not, it is not by intention. Somebody have 10% of knowledge and they put 300% in there. So there is lot of difference. So be in reality, because understand, picking your resume is very important. I agreed even for everyone, because everybody are job aspirants. I honor it. But at the same time, at least you should capable enough to explain the kind of CV what you has posted. That has to be presented to a person who is taking interview to you. So that sort of resume preparation is required, not just simply dumping all the technologies on the resume. Doesn't give you any kind of effectiveness, right? So I don't recommend, usually professionally speaking, based on my experience, I don't recommend, even I'm not recommending to my people who are approaches. See, for example, assume that, let me take mine as an example. For example, let me take this Python developer. If I apply, what is that I do? I'll tell you. This is the what practically I do is, if so, right? If I am belongs to this profile, if I am applying, for example, if I know 30% or 20%, so I'll put at least 50 to 60% add on, right? So that I'll get some exposure towards that, so that I can put it something exposure, I'd say, because I may not have experience, exposure, knowing about that particular technology, at least to an extent possible, theoretically or something. So that way I can support when I go for an interview, I can easily address the kind of questions people will ask, whether I may be succeeded or not, but my confidence level will be different. But if I don't know what is that, I put it on my CV, because I have seen some people I saying, this is all based on my experience, I'm saying. Whatever they explain about themselves and what is there they had in the CV has a quite complete difference, because I've seen some profiles, sorry to say that, because they don't know what is there in the resume, because most of the people were failed in understanding that, right? So because this is the reality which you have to understand, as long as you are in working on, you are living in the reality part, you will be succeeded, right? So please don't, my request to everyone is not to be in illusions, right? So because I have seen many people, they apply for job opportunities, but whatever they mention in the CV, they don't know even that was there in the CV. Because if someone is asking the question, they keep blank mind, blank face. So that should not be the case. So end of the day, this is what my observation. Of course, let's get back to the programming. So my suggestion to you in a simple note is, please be realistic. Of course, market industry requirements are needed, but you have to be realistic on your capabilities and capacities, right? So you have to, at the same time, before you are applying to some job opportunities, I would suggest everyone to go through your CV. What is that you was mentioned? Where you are good, where you are strong, where you are weak. Otherwise, you can categorize into three different parts. You are in the beginner level, intermediate level, as well as advanced level. So, of course, if you want any consulting, this thing I will suggest you, right? So, how you have to, of course, that is, it's not something like promotion, I can say. If anybody interested, that's different thing. So, but end of the day, so you have to. My simple tricks for you guys is to go through the CV. First of all, what is there you was mentioned, you are mentioned in that, and to what extent you are good in this. First, assess yourself before you are applying for job opportunities, or you are posting your resume into the job portal, so that at least you'll have a knowledge over what is that you have posted, being, because that is your resume end of the day, right? So you are responsible what you have mentioned in that document. So please do remember that point. Okay, coming back to the point, at the same time, object-oriented relational mapping is also required, something relating to ORM, all that. So this is what generally the technical and programming skills which one must be good and familiar with. Followed by this, if you are applying for an architect level, because there are some people who will be applying for an architect level positions, senior architect level positions or something, that you need to have a knowledge over technical as well as architectural as well as technical decisions. This is also required. At the same time, serverless architectures within different cloud services like AWS or any other similar cloud platforms will give you an additional advantage. At the same time, of course, API is also required. API, and followed by this, nowadays, this microservices based architectures knowledge is also becoming essential important. So this is also required to you equally. Followed by this, if you are applying for an architect, you need to have a knowledge over designing and approving, implementing designs of a new software system. Because when you are going to develop a new software, that designing and approving, implementing designs experience is also required. Or else software integrations within third-party packages. If you are not developing a new application in the job itself, at least you need to have experience in software integrations within third-party packages. Followed by this, any product architecture related knowledge by understanding the product vision, right? So that will help you a lot. Apart from that, if you have expertise in designing and high-level implementation of applications, of course, which is an integral part of an architect role, which is required. If you have, of course, architects are majorly from the technical background. I don't want to tell it as separate, but end of the day, experience as a full stack developer by knowing about the different phases of project life cycle, like right from the concept development to solutions, designing, implementation, or optimizations and support. So this is also required. At the same time, last but not least, experience over microservices based architecture, experience with microservices based architecture will also be helpful to you. This is what a complete job profile skill sets which the person who is applying as a Python developer or an architect, one must be good and familiar with, so that it is more advantageous for you while you are applying for job opportunities. You will have a chance to get an entry call at least, so that you can deliver what you are capable, right? So you get an opportunity to excel yourself in an interview, right? First of all, that is important. How far we are succeeded, it's completely depends on the experience as well as the performance of ours, but this is required. So this is all about video. If you require any kind of career transformation advisories or consulting tips or coaching tips or any other training and coaching and as well as consulting needs, all that, please feel free to reach out to the contact details which will be posted in below to this video. Thank you.